Today in this video, we're going to be talking about my top 5 rookie quarterbacks for Dynasty Fantasy Football. And we're going to be doing that right now. What's going on, guys? Bruce Matson, your host of the show, Metric Scout Fantasy Football, where I talk about fantasy football, obviously, redraft, dynasty, rookie drafts, NFL draft, NFL, all of that stuff, son. And I'm popping videos left and right. If this is something you're interested in, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, stay notified so you don't miss a show. It's a big one today. Big one. I'm going deep into those rookie quarterbacks. I'm giving you my top 5. And like the wide receiver video I did about a week or so ago, I'm going to rank these guys in tiers, so when they're close in value, you know where my head's at with these guys. Obviously, these rankings can change between now and draft day or even afterwards because we're in February still. I'm early in the game, so expect another one of these videos to be rolling out. Another reason why you should hit that subscribe button, but let's get into it. So, in Tier 1 for me is obvious. He's in Tier 1 for just about everybody this year, and that is Trevor Lawrence. One of the best quarterback prospects in my lifetime. I can easily say that. I like him better than Andrew Luck from back in the day, and I imagine how I feel, how I look through things historically, that he is just as good, if not better, of a quarterback prospect than compared to Peyton Manning coming out. This is a pristine level quarterback prospect. I do not see him busting at all. If he does, that's a very big shocker to me. I do not project that. There's a lot of good things about his profile. He's one of the top rated prospects to ever come out of high school, ever. Rated by 247 Sports, I think top 5 or something like that. Easy 5-star prospect, looked good coming out of high school and has put the pedal to the metal instantly right when he started his collegiate career. Finished his collegiate career passing for 10,000 yards, 90 touchdowns, and he has a little bit of Konami code in him. He has 943 rushing yards and 18 rushing touchdowns on his career, so he's going to give you that rushing floor. When it comes to a lot of passers, not all of them is going to give you that. He's not a straight running quarterback, but he does have that upside. He does give you that safety and security. On top of that, he's accurate. He had a 77.3% adjusted completion percentage this year. It's looked good throughout his entire career, and it's hard to see him failing at the next level. He will be the first quarterback taken. He will be the first player taken. He'll be a Jacksonville Jaguar. They have some weapons, DJ Chark and company, and Urban Meyer is set to build that team. Trevor Lawrence is almost bulletproof. He's in Tier 1 by himself, by the way. And as we go to Tier 2, it's Justin Fields. And he's in Tier 2 by himself. He is a supreme quarterback prospect. Any other year, he'd be the top player. He'd be the top player in the draft. He'd be the top quarterback drafted in the draft. When you look at Trevor Lawrence, and then you grade him against Justin Fields, they are really not that far apart. I know there was a publication that came out a few days, week or so ago, that said there were concerns about Fields' mental processing, and that publication has took a lot of heat, and it should have. Some of the metrics they came up with, saying he only left his first read 7 times out of 200 dropbacks or whatever, is really outlandish and not real. Justin Fields can process, he can survey the field, he can go from one read to another. There are instances where he does lock onto that first read more than he should. It is, but you'll catch that with Lawrence on film, you'll catch that on any other quarterback. It's just part of the growing process. It's part of the development. But what you get out of Fields is you get athleticism, you get leadership, you get a guy who can throw ropes, and he can throw ropes accurately all over the field, and he can spray the deep ball. He knows his receivers. One of the reasons why those instances where he does lock in, he has Chris Olave and he has Garrett Wilson, two of the best receivers in college football. He knows those two guys are locked up in man-to-man coverage, and he knows those guys are going to eventually win. He has a feeling of how much time he's got left in the pocket, so he's just going to wait that extra second and sling it. And he has the arm to put it in tough situations. You got to think that touchdown pass he threw to Jeremy Ruckert against Clemson this year over the middle that was in tight traffic, that was dangerous. You got to understand he had an outlet underneath that he could have dipped it down to, but he trusted his arm so much that he was able to whip it in there right into the basket, and it was for a touchdown. One of the best throws of his career. Really tight window. Go back and look at that if you do not remember that play. But Justin Fields has that arm strength, that capability, and that trust in his arm to make these plays happen, make these big boy throws. And he's mobile. He can get you yards on the ground. He had over 1,000 rushing yards in his career and 19 rushing touchdowns. He's also accurate. 80.8% adjusted completion percentage on the year, and he's throwing the deep ball often with a 10.4 average depth of target. So Justin Fields will sling it deep, he'll sling it accurately, and he'll get you rushing yards. He's a good quarterback prospect. Just like Trevor Lawrence, 247 Sports had him rated as one of the best prospects along the board historically of all time. Justin Fields, coming out of high school, was considered like a no-brainer prospect. It was a big deal that he went to Georgia, and it was a big deal when he transferred to Ohio State. And he was rated along with Trevor Lawrence. These guys have been almost battling each other back and forth these last few years in college football, being the best quarterback prospect. There's a lot of people who are ranking these two players in Devy back and forth. Fields' rushing ability, Lawrence's accurate arm, and so forth. There's a lot of back and forth on these players these last couple years. We get to draft time, people want to start fading Fields. I don't know why. Some people are just now starting to look at the tape. Some people are just now starting to get into us, where some of us aficionados have been watching these two guys battle it out. But all I gotta say, I am game for Justin Fields. He gets me excited. Any other class, he'd be the number one quarterback off the board and the number one player. It's the Trevor Lawrence show in 2021. Going to Tier 3. Tier 3 has one player too. And remind you, this is for Dynasty Fantasy Football. This is for fantasy football reasons. One thing we want to look at for fantasy football is the quarterback's rushing ability. That rushing ability gives us a floor and also gives us upside. Think of Kyler Murray. Think of Jalen Hurts when he went off or had those few games last year. His rushing ability really gets his value skyrocketed, gets people excited, and gives him more opportunities to succeed. Also, while he's developing, he can rely on that to help get us fantasy points. On a bad week, he's a low-end QB1 because he'll rush for 90-some yards and maybe a touchdown on top of what he's throwing. So Tier 3 is in a similar situation, and that's Trey Lance. Trey Lance is a monster when he takes off and runs. I've seen him move piles on film, run dudes over. He's a big guy, rushed for over 1,000 yards in a season, has 16 rushing touchdowns. You never go away from the Konami code. You never do that. That's the reason why it's called the Konami code. When it's called a code, like it's a secret society or something, you don't want to stray away from it. You do not want to stray away from Trey Lance. I don't care that he has more developmental things to work through compared to quarterback A, B, and C. That rushing ability, if he hits with that, you're talking QB1 consistently for a while. It's kind of a risk. You can go safer. When you're talking about that rushing ability, you cannot stray away from that. We got a 1,000-yard rusher. We got a guy that can tuck it and go, who can run over DBs and most linebackers. Trey Lance is a very athletic prospect. He can run away from guys. He can make moves on the ground. And then once we get into his passing ability, he's got a strong arm. he can fit windows. He makes those big boy throws. He can throw on the run. So there's a lot to like about his profile. I can see some issues with him moving from reads and then him anticipating his receivers getting open. And those anticipation marks, I wouldn't call them red flags, are just him needing to be that much quicker, just a shade quicker, anticipating his guy being open instead of throwing it to him when he's almost open. Sounds hard to conceive without the film, but you know what? YouTube keeps giving me copyright strikes when I put up film, so I have to just describe things now. But Trey Lance is not far off from being up there with Justin Fields. He's not that far off. He needs to clean up some stuff, but that rushing ability is what makes him a quarterback prospect we need to be going after in fantasy football. Because if he hits, he hits. If he hits big time for us. Kind of like Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts only had a couple games of production for us, and now he's considered a bona fide QB1, and there's just a lot of ambiguity with his long-term player value, but since he's got that Konami code, people are excited about it. Same thing with Trey Lance. If he hits big. That's why he's at QB3. Plus, he's talented. There's some things he needs to work through, but when you're the QB3 in any draft class, you're going to have things to work through. You're usually going to have one or two solid quarterbacks in any class, and the ones after that, they got some developmental properties in their game. No knocks on him. That's to be expected. Fields needs to develop. Trevor Lawrence needs to develop. That's just part of it. Trevor Lawrence is a bulletproof prospect, but he still needs to develop and get better. Going on to tier 4, I got two guys here, and that's Mac Jones and Zach Wilson. The hype train's huge on Zach Wilson, and Mac Jones is getting slept on. Mac Jones led Alabama to the national title, and what makes him different from the rest of the quarterbacks here, maybe even Trevor Lawrence, is his mental processing. His ability to go from one read to the other, scan the field, and he does it quickly. Just off the drop of a hat, off the drop of a button. He just scans the field, looks through things quickly, makes smart decisions. Why I have him at tier 4 and not tier 1 or tier 3 is his lack of rushing ability. So the opposite of Trey Lance. 42 yards on his total career on the ground. He's not going to get you that insurance policy with the rushing yards. So he has to make it up with his passing game. I have him higher than Zach Wilson, but not much. That's why they're in the same tier. Zach Wilson's a little bit more mobile, but he has superior arm talent. He can fit it into tight windows. He can make throws that will completely amaze you, and he can do it while on the run. He has a little bit of mobility, but he's not considered an elite level Konami code guy, but he'll get you a little floor. Daniel Jones-esque type of floor, maybe you want to call it. But that floor is good for fantasy either way. That extra 3, 4, 5, 6 fantasy points really helps a player like that get to that lower end QB1 or get him from low-end QB1 to high-end QB1. That may be enough for him. His ability to just chuck the football really has got the scouts' eyes on him, big media's eye on him. He could be the second quarterback off the board above Justin Fields. There are some issues with his game, though. He didn't play against tough competition, not the toughest. There are some mental processing issues with him. It's not brought up enough, but he needs to anticipate for his wide receivers to get open. Like, instead of seeing them open, he needs to anticipate them to get open. So even when they're shaded and they'll be open in like the next quarter of a second or so, he needs to not wait on them to get to that opening point. He needs to be able to just sling that ball at the right time. So Zach Wilson has some anticipation issues with his wide receivers. He needs to just pick up on that rhythm, get a little faster as mental processing, see things better, make some better reads. He does have some mental blips. Going back to Mac Jones in this tier, tier 4, he is very accurate. 84.2 adjusted completion percentage on top of the quick mental processing. And you think Alabama, you think he has all that time to throw him forever, but compared to all these quarterbacks listed in here, he has the least average time to throw. Some of it's quick screen passes, some of it's because of that, but a lot of it's due to him playing in the SEC, playing against good defenses, good defensive lines, good fronts, and then blitzing him, trying to get into his head. 2.51 average time to throw compared to Justin Fields, where he had 3.11 seconds average time to throw. A little less time. That could be manipulated a bit by the screen yards, but he has thrown the second most screen yards of all the quarterbacks listed here with 591. The most is Trevor Lawrence with 686. Mac Jones, though, I feel safe with his mental processing abilities, his ability to make smart moves, get the ball out quickly. He's accurate. I feel like he's a safe prospect, a safe bet to make. I feel like he doesn't have the same upside as Trey Lance and Justin Fields. If he had some rushing ability, I would move him up to tier 3, but he doesn't have that, so that rushing floor is just not going to be there for him. Zach Wilson is in that same tier with Mac Jones because he has NFL-ready arm, but he needs to work on his mental processing. I do like his mobility. Those are my 5 quarterbacks. I'm going to give you one extra. Since I'm giving you that one extra, hit that subscribe button because I'm giving you a little extra. Give me a little extra. We'll help each other out. But I got the 5th tier, and that's Kyle Trask from Florida. He started things off really, really good this year. There was some people considering him to be in competition to be one of the top quarterbacks for this draft after his first couple games. Kyle Pitts looked good. Kadarius Toney, I don't know where he came out of nowhere, started showing some life. He has an arm on him. He has size. He does some good things on the field. I consider him a average to high-end developmental quarterback prospect. I see him needing to be in the right situation to succeed. I see him as somebody you shouldn't take for granted. I think that under the right supervision, the right coaching, he could develop into a prospect. He's someone that you want to take a stab at, and he's going to be cheaper than the rest of the quarterbacks, so it'd be less of a gamble. He did some promising things. 76.6 adjusted completion percentage, 1,269 deep yards. His passes 20 yards or more, so he slings it deep. 10.1 average depth of target. Very solid prospect. Had a lot of blips on the tape. Was not perfect. Has some mental processing issues also. Also has some decision-making issues. Can get rattled at times. But when you're like the 6th quarterback in the list, or you're not considered top 2, top 3 consensusly, you're going to have some of those issues. That's what makes him a developmental quarterback. The rushing ability is not there. He only has 54 rushing yards on his career. Down tape, he doesn't really have the speed. But he is a guy that can sling it deep, stand tall in the pocket, can make throws, and has shown glimpses that he can be successful. Kyle Trask is a developmental prospect that we can get cheap as a end the bench stash to see what happens. There's some upside with him. Right situation, right time with the right players. He could blossom. I mean, he's shown some good things this year. I would not bet on it, but I'm not going to take it for granted either. That's my top 6 quarterbacks. I gave you one extra. Like I did in the wide receiver video. Go check that out in the archives. I gave you 11 when I said I was going to give you 10. So you know you're going to get a little extra with this channel. Thank you for watching the show. It means a lot to me. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out so you don't miss any episodes. I'm popping out content left and right. Ring that bell. Tell your homies about it. And I'll catch you next time.